I'm an accidental entrepreneur, 100%. So for me, I got married really young. I got married when I was 17. I had my 2 sons and I was working 2 jobs, really grinding to be able to make even ends meet. Where is something missing? Then they create that for that rather than it being a passion of their own.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always been an accidental entrepreneur thing because it's naturally evolved into where I'm at in my life. Having everyone think that success was having an office, a gym, all these staff.
Yeah.
I am so grateful for my team now.
Yeah.
I don't have any bitching. I don't have any issues. I don't even remember the last HR issue. I was unhappy within my life. So instead I was chasing money. I was chasing success. I was chasing business success because I was so unhappy within my own personal life.
Yeah.
Changed that around and now it's just like money flows 100%. Most of these cases is that they're screaming out for help for any sort of human connection.
Yeah.
And in the world we're living in right now, is human connection is such a massive, massive missing key element that so many people don't have.
So that together we have clarity, direction, and success way beyond what we ever previously thought possible. Here's your host, Frankie Lee.
Welcome back to the Frankie Lee podcast. Today, guys, we have the woman that you've all been asking for on the DMs, Sophie Guidolin. And I pronounced that right, didn't I?
You did. You nailed that. Good job.
And honestly, I was so worried about that, guys. But IFBB Pro, woman of many multiple 7-figure businesses, who's done it all, stepped on stage, won titles, just empowered a load of women. Obviously got other businesses as well. We're all going to go into, and I think the best place for us to start, Sophie, is first, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I wore my boots because you wore yours. I got done. I've been absolutely stitched up here, right? We went to, was it breakfast last week? Yeah, brunch. Was it brunch? Brunch. And I thought that Sophie was going to turn up in activewear today. So I fully like, she's fully stitched me anyway. She's come dressed for Paris Fashion Week.
I'm either 0 or 100 always.
You're 120.5.
Guys, can I just say, I'm actually wearing a jumper and boots. I'm not dressed up. Like, I'm not even wearing a dress. I'm wearing a jumper.
Yeah, all right, yeah. Basically, I'm dressed like I'm going to Never Quit, and you're dressed like you go to Burley Path, like, do you know what I mean? So there's a void. But anyway, I'm stepping into it. I'm owning it, and we're back. Anyway, so I think the best place for us to start with you is, like, your journey's been a bit hectic, right? You obviously blew up, made multiple 7 figures, then kind of lost it all and then had to reclimb back up the ladder. So I think that's an incredible place for us to start. It's just how you even got started and how you blew up on social media.
I'm an accidental entrepreneur, 100%. So for me, I got married really young. I got married when I was 17. I had my 2 sons and I was working 2 jobs, really grinding to be able to make even ends meet. And I was a single mum at the time and I literally was working Monday to Friday during a day job and I was running a modelling agency, and then Thursday to Sunday nights doing marketing for a nightclub. So I was working hectic hours just to be able to try and put food on the table, pay rent, to be able to put the boys through school and just kind of getting through life week to week.
So when you've had the first 2 boys, like first twin, they were twins because you got 2.
No, they're a year apart.
Oh, they're a year apart.
Yeah, I know. Everyone thinks that.
Yeah, I literally thought they were twins. But when you first had your first boy, was it not? Were you not expecting to have children at that time, or was that?
No, I always had planned to have kids. Like I would honestly have like 12 kids. I'm so your face.
Well, like, what a start! Jesus.
I'm so maternal. Like I always wanted to have kids. Like it was always my calling and it's my favorite thing in the whole world. And I have 4 and everyone's always like, wow.
I could not believe that when you told me the other day.
Yeah. I love it. I love it so much.
You're 32, right?
Yeah, correct.
Not that we could discuss ages, but
you can definitely discuss that. No.
So you are literally like a year younger than me, and you've got 4 children. I tell you now, you would never think you even have 1.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because I feel like the people that I've met over the years, I've kind of changed their perception of having children. Because I think for a lot of people, having kids is limiting. It stops them from being able to achieve their goals. It's restrictive. They can no longer have fun.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, having my my children allows me to have all of those elements in my life. And if anything, it gives me a purpose to be able to have those things. And I think that the way that I parent allows me to still have that freedom and be able to really enjoy being a mum.
Yeah, I've seen how you've lent into it, and obviously you're doing jiu-jitsu with them. They're doing this. They're just all bouncing all around the house. I'm like, how do you manage all that with everything that you're trying to achieve over here, and here? Like, it's just some crazy amount of stuff that's going on. But like when you had them boys, and obviously you're married so young, you've had the boys. What was the thing that made you blow up on social media? Like, what was like the key thing where you thought that changed and that just sent you off to the races?
Yeah, so I started going to the gym, and it was kind of like my only thing for me. Working 2 jobs and having the boys at that time was really quite a time juggle more than anything. So in order for me to be able to have time to myself, I started going to the gym in the mornings. And a trainer actually came up to me and was like, look, I'll train you for free if you jump on stage. And because I'd done modelling since I was like 12, I was like, oh, I could be tempted, but no, that's not for me.
Yeah.
And he was like, all right, I know that you're going to want to jump on stage in 12 weeks. So how about I train you anyway? And if you don't jump on stage, that's fine. And if you do jump on stage, cool.
Wouldn't it have been easier for him to just ask you out for dinner?
No, he was married. No, he was married, and he definitely was seeing that as a business opportunity, and he knew that I had a lot of potential.
So he thought you've got good genetics and a good frame to obviously build up, and in this respect. So he thought, build you up and then obviously use you as an advertisement for his business kind of thing.
I think for him it was more the fact I had the confidence, and on stage, your stage presence and confidence is everything. So he knew that I knew how to walk. I taught deportment. I taught girls every single day how to be able to become a fashion model, to be able to walk a catwalk. So he knew that I had that element to me.
Yeah, that little bit of sass.
Yeah, a little bit of diva in me deep down. And so when he was training me, I was stoked because I was being able to learn how to train at the same time, and I was also doing my qualifications to become a personal trainer. So it allowed me to be able to learn whilst also doing the study at the same time. And so 12 weeks passed, and I was documenting my fitness journey. And I say fitness journey in quotations because for me at the time, it was essentially trying to lose my baby weight of having the boys, and I used...
Did you put on a lot of weight during that period then?
32 kilos. I had gestational diabetes with the boys.
32 kilos?
Yep. I had gained, so I was so unhealthy though. I was literally living on Maggi noodles, chocolate Yogo, and like these thick shake milk things.
Yeah.
Like my diet was so unhealthy. And so when I had my second son, they actually said to me, like, you need to look at what you're eating because you've got gestational diabetes, you've gained all this weight, and your last baby, he was 3 weeks overdue and 42. He was 10.4 pound, 10 pound 2. So he was a big boy. So I think it's like 4.8 kilos. So he was a big boy. And they were like, we don't want you to have the same issues again. Like, you really need to look into your diet. And so I kind of was like, shit, I better do something about this. I can't keep eating what I'm eating and expect everything to be rosy at the end. So I was trying to lose all of that weight. And in the process, I was documenting that on this brand new app called Instagram.
Yeah.
And in my mind...
Can't say I know that app, but yeah.
No, it's just this little old thing. And in my mind, it was just a filter app. So I would like make the photos black and white, or I'd put the contrast up, or I'd change the saturation. And then I would upload those photos onto my Instagram page. Yeah. Now I had my Facebook page, sorry. So I had a Facebook page that was like a public profile Facebook page for all of my modelling work and things like that. And I'd done Clipsal and heaps of big jobs across Australia for many years before that. Yeah. And so for me, it was kind of just uploading my fitness journey on Instagram, not knowing that anybody else could see it. Within 6 months, I had like 100,000 followers.
And you didn't even notice?
Well, I noticed, but I didn't think they could see my photos because my account was on private. And so in my mind, it was just like they couldn't see the photos. And at that time, there was no likes. So you couldn't see. You could just see the photos. There was no, I don't even think there was captions. The funny thing is, though, is I could actually scroll all the way back
see all those photos.
They're still there. Like, I haven't gone and edited my profile, and for those that follow me will know that I just don't give a shit what people think about me. So I've never had the time to be able to go back and edit stuff that I don't want people to see. I'm like, whatever.
That's what I loved about you when I met you is like the fact of how raw and honest you are.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the conversations we'll go into on the back of this podcast will really show people how like
what you see is what you get.
Yeah, what you see is what you get. How like obviously when I met you, I was like, wow, this is like I like this because for someone like me that has a lot of banter, sometimes people have a habit of taking offense to it too soon.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've got a long way to go before I'm ever near the line of crossing over it because you're out there, girl.
I grew up with two brothers though, so for me it's just like constant banter. Like there's nothing that's and I've got 2 teenage sons now as well. So if I was sensitive, I would literally be rorted every single day because they are so mean to me. Like I literally am just like, you got me good. So no, banter is definitely not one that will offend me anytime soon.
And I think it's so important. I think too many people are taking too much shit personal.
Yeah, 100%. Well, the other massive thing is on social media is that projection is such a real thing. So learning to understand that somebody else throwing shade on you online is definitely nothing to do with you. And 9 times out of 10, they've got their own shit going on. And I'll sometimes play around with this. So when someone DMs me something nasty, I'll reply something really sweet and they'll be like, shit, like I didn't realize you were even going to A, see that, B, respond, and yeah, you're right. Like I'm a dickhead, I'm having a bad day, my ex has been an asshole, whatever it is.
Do you know what I do, right? When someone sends me a hateful comment, I DM them and I send them my phone number. I say, hey, whoever, girl, lad, whatever. I'm like, you're obviously having a bad day. Yeah. If you need someone to talk to, this is my mobile number. Give me a call, and I put an X on the end.
Yeah.
Because I used to be like, come like meet me for 3 rounds in a boxing gym and we'll see and I'll smash your teeth in. But then I realized that kindness is the only way to stop this, because if I go with meet aggression with aggression, then what happens is that just carries on down the line. So more people more people down that track are going to get offended and hurt. But you can choose to stop it, and that's what you're doing. You're contacting these people and saying, "Hey, hang on a minute.
People heal people. And hurt people hurt people."
Exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah, 100%. And it's so fucking important that everyone who listens to this gets that, because we all have bad days.
100%. And it's just interesting though, isn't it? Because in most of these cases is that they're screaming out for help, for any sort of human connection. And in the world we're living in right now, is human connection is such a massive, massive missing key element that so many people don't have. And you think about all those people perhaps in Victoria, New South Wales, who have been locked down for 350 days and haven't seen anyone, haven't spoken to anyone. And their only source of connection is online. Yeah,
and what they're getting, and the source of the connection that they're getting is curated so Instagram and social media are curated to show you more of what you keep liking. So if you keep liking conspiracy theories or you keep liking negative news, what are you going to get more of? Negative news. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just a total fugazi where people just get caught up in this time vortex and get dragged down this hole, and then obviously they come, then they see a nice photo and they think, I'll tell you what, today I'm going to message Soph something hateful, because because that reflects the weather, how I'm feeling inside. So it's just and like you say, it's good that you help people breach that gap, you know.
Every now and again I'll sometimes screenshot and post all of like that particular day's conversations. And it's quite eye-opening for a lot of people. And I'm having these conversations at home because I do have a 14-year-old. So he's wanting to have social media at the moment. I'm like, I don't think you understand the type of messages I receive every day, mate. Like, this is the sort of stuff that
he'd be getting messages like, your mum's a MILF. Like, you know.
So the other day, great segue, great story. The other day, Kai was saying to me, Mum, do you know what Reddit is? And I said, oh, yeah. And he goes, well, there's a Reddit about you with all these pics. And I said, oh, is there? And he goes, yeah, I'll show you. And he goes onto Google and finds it for me. And he goes, that's just a favourite of my friends. My friends are on there. And I said, oh, how does that make you feel? And he goes, oh, means I've got good genetics, so I'm not that fussed. And I was like, good job, mate. Really good job. So, yeah, they definitely stir him up about it. But I'm like, it is what it is.
What can you do, though? What can you do? Like, you get with the following, you've got, 500,000 on Instagram. Where else you've got? What other platforms?
Facebook, I think there's about 300,000, 400,000 maybe. And surprisingly, Snapchat is my biggest. So I'll get between like 2 to 3 million views on Snapchats.
Is Snapchat, people still use that?
No, well, this is the thing, right? So I'll use it maybe once a fortnight when I remember, because I do feel like there's that, I don't know, sexual connotation to Snapchat almost, because it does disappear. So I don't use it as heavily as what I did, but I used to use it a lot for my meal preps and stuff.
Yeah, when I was a naughty boy back in the day.
Naughty with an I? Naughty
boy. I used to, like, the two apps that were combined at the time was Snapchat and Tinder. Like,
do you know what was really funny? I went to this, it was called Level Up, so it's like a time zone.
Yeah.
And my daughter picked up all of these round rings, like a hoop game, and she picked them all up and threw them like this instead of going one by one.
Yeah.
And it was the perfect analogy for Tinder with guys, because you sit on there and you literally throw it out there like, I'll do 100 swipes to the right girl and one of them will come back. That was her whole theory. And I was like, girl, if you went on Tinder, you'd have 100 coming back to you.
But to be honest, right, with women on Tinder, women don't struggle with nothing. If you sent out 100 messages, you get 100 replies as a female on Tinder. Men would have to have a little bit more like personalization. They can't just copy paste messages. They've got to put a little bit of, you know.
I just can't. I could not be bothered with that.
No, I retired from my admin job on Tinder fucking 3 years ago. But when I did use that app, there's a lot of work in it. There's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot. And in order to catch someone's attention,
it's admin. Because you've got to personalise every single first approach. Otherwise, you will not get past that. You know what I mean?
You seem very passionate about this.
No, I'm just saying, like, if you're going to do it, you have to go all in. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, all in or all out.
Yeah. Don't. Yeah, lads, stay away from that app. It's a big time waste. So anyway, you blew up on back the pivot back. You blew up on social, yeah, and then obviously, how was it you first started to make money online?
So everybody was kind of watching the way that I'd lost my weight, and firstly they were asking me what I did and how I did it, and I was unqualified to be able to give that advice. So what I was doing is just sharing how I was doing it online.
But you did it anyway.
No, I got qualified.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
So then I was studying nighttime as well to become qualified in personal training. And in the process, although I was eating really bad when I was pregnant, the way that I grew up was the entire opposite. And I almost feel like my upbringing kind of pushed me to the other way. So we grew up on a farm. Everything we ate was organic, sustainable. My parents grew all our veggies. All of our meat was organically killed on our farm. All of our fish was caught on the boat. So it was all a very organic, healthy lifestyle. We grew up with no televisions. And so my idea of fun was either reading books or cooking. And
what a great childhood. What a great childhood.
Well, it allowed me to be able to set me up now for the skills that I have. So learning to cook from such a young age, and from my mum, who is just the most amazing cook in the way that she is able to adapt.
Yeah.
So
I love the way that mums can cook those real homely foods.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they're not like Michelin star chefs, but the way that they cook and the love and attention that they put into what they prepare is what makes the food that you grow up as a child mean so much to you.
I swear that it's all about the love. And even I know that myself. Like if I the boys have this like chicken curry recipe that they love. If I make it on the fly and just like throw it together to feed them, they always like, oh, it wasn't as good today. And if I like really put love into it and really make an effort to make it, they're like, Mum, that was the best ever. So I swear there's something in the whole making it with love thing.
Yeah, I believe that it's whether it's food, whether it's business, whether it's the gym, it's always you've got to set the intention before you do it.
Yeah.
Right?
It shows.
It's like that Tinder analogy that we just threw down, right? That I don't know where that came from, but it did. Anyway, right? This is what I mean by me and you having a podcast. Like, this is just mad, right? But it's when that analogy is like everything that you said there was all about the intention.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because you can meet a nice person on that platform or on any platform if you set the intention right at the start.
So, again, I'm just going to go left of field here, which we're going to get to the story eventually, but I'm going to throw this off. So, when I first moved here, I had come off the back of all these competitions, right?
Yeah.
And I'd gained all this weight again after being starved from a really poor coach who didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
And the less food I was eating, the more I was gaining weight, and I couldn't figure out what was happening. So I went to a hormone specialist up here, and he had just released this new product to market, and it was a plate. but it was a weighted plate with a timer on it, right?
Yeah.
And so essentially it was trying to teach you to slow down when you ate, because the intention between actually consuming your food and what you were eating created different enzymes in your mouth, which therefore broke the food down. So the intention of actually going, I am now eating a carrot, and breaking it down mentally of what you were consuming allowed your body to respond with different enzymes to break it down and therefore lose weight.
Fucking
Crazy,
hell.
hey?
Fucking hell. I've never even thought of it like that. I mean, I know chewing food for longer is better for your digestive system.
Yeah. I think there's so much though in actually like intentionally being like, I appreciate this food. I love where this is coming from. Yeah.
I think intention with everything is where it's at.
So my whole life mantra is do everything with love and meaning. So my parenting, my work, everything has love and meaning behind it. And if it doesn't, I'm not doing it.
Except bolognese made on a Thursday when you're in a rush.
Except for when the kids are giving me the absolute shits and they got to eat.
Yeah.
Then it's just...
So then it's like, just throw it together and then you
here's your chicken curry.
And then your feedback on TripAdvisor goes down.
Definitely. The boys probably would set that up. But yeah, not a great time for me.
Mum's kitchen.
So Mum taught me how to cook every single recipe according to no recipe, right?
Yeah.
With only what produce we had.
So seasonal cooking.
Seasonal cooking.
Yeah.
So she would literally look in the cupboard and be like, oh, we've got crushed tomatoes, we've got legumes, and we've got fresh spinach, and Dad just caught some whiting.
Yeah.
Let's throw together a dish. This is how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And so that's how I learned to cook. And so throughout all of the process of me trying to lose weight, get fitter, get healthier, and then compete, all of the recipes that I created were made with that in mind. And so what I did was I would hand write on a piece of A4 paper all of the recipes that I was making, and then I would post them online in regards to what I was eating.
Yeah.
So by the time the 12 weeks came around and I did get on stage, I had a whole A4 folder of recipes.
So you had the recipes, you had the training program, you'd already created that audience because you were posting on Instagram every day.
Correct.
Posting on Facebook, so you'd already got those people who were interested, and then you formulated that into a product.
So then I had the recipes handwritten.
Yep.
And then my mum's a photographer. So I said to my mum, can you please take some photos of my food? And she was like, yeah, of course. She took photos of the food. One of my friends that worked with me in one of my jobs was a graphic designer. And I said to her, hey, can you design me an ebook? And I said, but I don't have the money to pay you, but I'll pay you the week after it launches. And I promise I'll pay you the week after it launches. She's still one of my best friends now. And she was like, yeah, of course. A guy who worked as a tech guy in one of the other websites, like a website builder, I guess, I said to him, hey, can you build me a website that I can sell these on? And he was like, yeah, of course. I'll charge you $220. And I was like, fuck, I don't even have $220. I was literally living week to week. I had to pay childcare fees. I really was living week to week.
Yeah, and childcare in Australia is expensive.
$120 a day per child?
I know, and I'd say the average wage in Australia is probably $800 to $1,000 a week.
I think it's less than that to be fair.
Yeah.
I think it's about $500.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think it's that high.
So yeah, that's what I mean. So you put all that together.
So in order for me to pay for the website, I actually had to withdraw funds from my kids' saving account. And so I wrote myself this letter, and I basically said to myself,
trying to justify it, you mean?
Yeah. And I said to myself, if you take this money, you have to pay it back 4 times. So it's $220.
Yeah.
Right? And
I love that commitment that you made to yourself there, because it's so important.
Yeah, huge. And I also didn't want to just take the money and never have that repercussion back for them as well. And they didn't even know this money exists. They still don't know this money exists. So my boys still don't even know.
They will do if they listen to the podcast.
They don't though. They're so So I've locked their bank accounts until they're 21.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and I kind of raise them in a way that they don't think they have any money. They don't know. They have to work for it. They both want jobs. I've raised them in a very different way.
I kind of think that's how all kids should be raised anyway. Because it's like I've got investments for Rocco and Amelia, which is like my niece and my nephew, right? Mm-hmm. And by the time that they get to 18, they won't even know it, but they'll have millions of dollars because of the moves that I've made for them already.
Yep.
When they're 4 and 7. But I will never tell them they have millions of dollars.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Because I will first teach them how to earn money, how to sell, how to create online business, how to create streams of revenue, how to do this before I ever tell them about this. But I'm going to be subconsciously teaching them that over their whole life. Like every time I take them out to the park, I'll be teaching them shit because I just want to instill that in them. Because that's like, I'm just going to be that good uncle.
It's a really good uncle. I'd like to have millions by the time I was 18.
Thing is, everybody can have millions by the time they're 18 if you set the right investments in motion with compound interest on your side. Then by 18 they are. It's
interesting though, isn't it? Because Kai came home yesterday and he goes, "Mum, my friend has learnt the stock market and he has $10,000 in his bank." And I was like, man, so good.
How old is this kid?
14.
That's sick.
Super sick. Off of $1. And I was like, go you, mate. Go you. So that's their latest thing.
That's super sick. And you can, compound interest is like, don't get me started on this, but it's like the eighth wonder of the world, man. Like it really is. Like if you set the right moves in motion for like your kids, which is what you're doing anyway, but what I'm trying to do for my sis, because my sister's been brought up in the you can save your way out of problems mentality, right? And rather than me trying to teach a woman who's been taught that her whole life that won't break that pattern that's not really left our area, that's been surrounded by my mum, and she's just very conditioned to that way of thinking. So rather than me trying to break that, I'm like, fuck that, I'm not going to try and break that. I'll just make my moves over here that I know are better for the kids' long run. I'll make my moves and I will just teach these kids over the time period why those moves were made so they can make them moves for their family onward. And then that creates generational wealth without me having to battle my sister about the fact that she's wrong and I'm right, or I'm wrong and she's right. Do you know what I mean?
Or that you're both right, you just have different views, maybe?
Yeah, but well, no, impossible because you cannot save your way to wealth. You and I both know that.
I know, but it's just seeing someone for where they're at, you know.
Yeah, and that's why I don't berate her about it.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, you can't save your way to wealth.
So I'm right, you're wrong.
No, I don't say it, but I'm just telling you.
But I know it.
She doesn't listen to my podcast, so I can say it. But like, yeah, she's wrong.
Episode XYZ. Take notes.
Put it this way: if she put compound interest to work the way that I'd tell her to, like the kids would have a hell of a lot of money at 18 if she put all that they'd saved into investments.
It's so important to teach kids about this, and I know that for myself, like growing up, I always thought we were so poor, and so I started my first job at 13 in the coffee shop next to my ballet school, and for every $1 I earned, my parents gave me $1.
Yep.
And so every single part that I earned was doubled because obviously as a 13-year-old I wasn't earning a whole lot of money. And my first boss taught me some of the most valuable experiences because his name's Pat, and like if you live in McLaren Vale, everyone knows who Pat is. He's like the head of the CFS down there, and he's a very firm man who teaches you what's right, what's wrong. And I also think that was also very important for me to learn those lessons not from my parents.
Yeah.
Because sometimes having that external factor of somebody being like, hey, this is what you do and here's some tough love, like that was actually the best thing for me, and I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, 100%, and that's why, and that's why it's not for me to like. My sister is a great mum to those children, right? I am never gonna go in there and start saying, right, kids, you lot listen to me because I know this, and this, because it's important that they have that very grounded family woman, which is exactly what my mum was to us growing up. So I understand the psychology of that. On the other side of things, I just think it's good that they have me on the other side of things that can show them from a different framework. Do you know what I mean? Like, because at the end of the day, the proof is in the fucking pudding. And if you want this life, do this, and if you want this life, which I'll show them in the future, then you do this. I don't care which one you choose, but just know that making that move does that, more of that, and making that move does more of that. Which way do you want to go?
Yeah.
And they can decide themselves then, can't they?
Yeah.
And I already know subconsciously that Rocco will move one way, and Amelia, because of the way that she'll be brought up and the girls are brought up in our family, she'll move another way. But that's fine. they're both cool, but I wanted to set a little bit of a new, so they had choices. Do you know what I mean? The choices that I didn't potentially have because I wasn't educated that way myself.
Yeah, education's key, hey?
Yeah, well, what were you taught when you grew up? Were you taught go out, get a job, buy a house, do this, do that? Is that how you were taught, or how were you taught in Australia?
Well, see, Australia versus the way that I was taught is probably two completely separate things. I was raised in a family where we had businesses. So I would literally help my mum do our MYOB every year. My mum did our accounting.
I love that.
And I think that's also a huge element of my success.
I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
Because this is what... So for if you're a new listener and you've only just come to this podcast and you've not listened before, I'll tell you this, right? I came to Australia 7 years ago, yeah? I was a carpenter and joiner by trade, Soph, right? So I came over here. I'd worked a job. I'd worked like 3 different jobs to save up the money. I'd been brought into the typical system where you go out, work, swap your time for money, and then you take that money and then you save it up. And then after you've saved it for a few years, you go and put a deposit down the house, put yourself in another load of debt, and then you work for another 30 years to pay the house off. And then by the time you retire, you've got your house and maybe hopefully you've got a pension. And
then you're supposed to have fun when you're 70 and too old to enjoy it.
This is it, right? Mm-hmm. So I thought, fuck this, there's got to be a better way to life than this. And I'd seen Australia on the TV, like A Place in the Sun, Bondi Rescue. Bondi Rescue. I was fucking in love with Holly Valance on the
Wasn't she beautiful?
I fell in love with her about 6 times a day.
She's so gorgeous. She's such a babe.
Right, so I thought, right, I'll just go to Australia then. So, and I came out here.
I'd meet Holly, fall in love.
Yeah. I thought, yeah, sweet as a nut. We're all good. Don't worry, I'll find a way. But anyway, right, I guess here, and I couldn't believe how different you guys move and operate. Like, you think about you and what you just said to me there. As a child, right, you are being taught accounting moves. You're being taught business moves through... You're being taught about creating produce in your life. You're being taught to cook. You're being taught... I was taught to cook and I was taught that, but I was taught to cook, to work and to save, right? You've been taught how to balance income and expense statements, to moving balance sheets, how money works. That subconsciously has definitely fed into your success that you had, because you created... What age were you when you created your first 7 figures?
22.
22 years old.
21 maybe even?
21, 22 years old. Do you know how many 21 and 22-year-olds I know in Australia that have also created 7 figures? Many of them. Yeah. It's like an abundance. It's like many. I know so many 21-year-olds, but I can't say the same about where I'm from.
Yeah, okay. Because it's interesting, isn't it? Because if I was to look in my demographic of people that I had grown up with, I don't know if they had the same level of parenting experience or childhood or what I was taught, even in the same areas that I grew up in. And I'm not sure if that was isolated to just my parents. But the other thing as well is, like, my dad was a fireman for like 40-something years. Yeah. So he taught me hard work at the same time. He also ran our winery. Yeah. But in saying that, like, Mum always spoke about line of credit. She always spoke about balancing the different businesses. Yeah. She set herself up with numerous Airbnbs and different elements of being able to
create cash flow.
Yeah. Yeah. And she has so many properties everywhere to be able to do that. So I definitely don't know if it's an Australian thing, but it's an interesting thing.
I honestly believe that we live in not only the luckiest time, but one of the luckiest countries to be able to be exposed to these kind of moves.
Yeah, okay.
Like, I honestly believe that if Rocco and Amelia and my sister were here and they grew up in this country, they would have a different perspective at 18 than they're going to have living in England. Yeah. Just because you are a product of your environment. Yeah. And that is so key, is your environment and everything you do. And the moves that you've already told us on this podcast that you've made are all stem from your childhood when you break it down.
Well, even with the boys at the moment, I always say to them, like, you can be anything that you want to be. You can create a product and you can make that your entire life. And my parents also said that to me every single day. You can do anything you want. anything at all. There was never a limitation of you must do this, you must be this, you must go into this avenue, and there was never that. Do whatever you want was always the underlying message that I had being raised.
Again, and I think that is a cultural thing here.
Yeah.
Because you look at obviously you're going to Spin and Coach after this podcast, You look at what Sam's done.
Yeah.
And the abundance that Sam's created in his life from literally like nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you see, obviously Sam came on the podcast, Sam Mangan podcast. You can listen to it on this podcast, guys. Go back, but like, you see what Sam's done and how he's created business and the moves that he's made. You know what I mean? For his age, and you're like, I'm sat here, I'm like, but I only got here at 26 years old.
Yeah.
Do you know? I'm like, I'm a late starter to this mindset.
But see, it's not even. You could go from 0 to 7 figures in 6 months.
100%.
And that's what I keep saying to my kids in the way that I raise them. You think of a product that you love, and and this might be a controversial thing, I don't even care if there is no demand in the market for that product. If you love it and you 100% back it, it will do well. And I show that time and time and time again, because our latest product that we've just launched was conversation cards. There's no one's ever been like, hey, Soph, can you please create some conversation cards because I'm really struggling with my connection. No one said that. But what I noticed is I went through a marriage breakdown. I was meeting new people and just being like, tell me there's more to you than this superficial chat that I'm currently having. Like, tell me anything more than what you like to do on the weekend, what your favorite color is and who your favorite band is. I was like, give me something more. So
give me some depth.
Yes. Like, give me vulnerability. Tell me why you are the way you are. Tell me your biggest trauma. Tell me what's happened to you in your life to make you the way you are. Like, I want to really understand you and get to know you. So what I would do is I would write down all these questions in my notes of my phone, and I would mentally prepare different questions that I wanted to ask to be able to get a better response or a deeper connection.
Yeah.
And as I did this, people were like, wow, like that's an epic question. And I'd pushed for these cards for about 18 months, and all of my team were like, so the outlay for these products is so expensive. Like, we just don't know. Like, is there a market fit? And I just kept saying, like, trust me, trust me, trust me. Like, listen to my gut. Trust me, trust me. Every product that I've ever put out there that I have 100% backed sells out. We've sold out of 2 rounds of these. So over 7,500 units in under 3 weeks of these cards. Everyone loves these cards because I know it changes lives, and it changes the way that we connect with people because it happens to me. So rather than me going, and this is where I think a lot of businesses kind of go wrong, is that they look into the market to try and create a successful business. Where is something missing? Then they create that for that rather than it being a passion of their own.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always been an accidental entrepreneur thing because it's naturally evolved into where I'm at in my life. If I resonate with it, someone else out there resonates with it, and it's a niche to someone else.
Yeah, 100%.
So rather than it being me creating a product that fits the market, it's a product that fits for me. And then I can passionately market that.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Like, if I was going to create a product right now out of thin air, I suppose the thing that I'm going to use every day is either a skipping rope or it's going to be a blade for shaving my head. Like, because those are things that I'm passionate about and that I do every single day.
Yeah.
So if I do it every single day, I know something about that. It's going to be authentic to me. It's going to work because at the end of the day, I'm backing it and I'm using it and I'm iterating on the product because I use it every day.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
And in regards to education as well, I'm not sure if this is isolated to where my children go to school, but I've seen over the last 5 years, it has entirely changed. So they no longer have classrooms. They have open space learning so that you can collaborate with kids from different classrooms.
Age groups?
Different age groups. So it's now from middle years, which is year 7, all the way through to year 9.
You have to understand, Sophie, that this is an Australian thing.
Yeah. I think this is isolated to their school though.
Yeah, and it's good, and I like the thinking behind it.
Yeah.
But I know from a systemized state of schooling in the UK that I went through that it's not like that there.
Yeah. Okay.
And everything that I came from is always underfunded.
Yeah.
Like, everything in the UK is underfunded. You've got so many people, so little money to go around. Everything's underfunded. But here, everything is like, I just think, you can't even find a pothole in the road or
what? I popped a tyre last month from a pothole in the road.
But when you step out, like you see how good it is here, and like you go down the beach and there's barbecues everywhere. We've got it so abundant.
Yeah. Yep.
It's so good here. Yep. It's the best country in the world. Like, there's no doubt in my mind this is the best country in the world.
100%. That's why everyone's talking about overseas travel. I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm sweet, mate. I'll stay right here.
Yeah, fucking right. Exactly. I just think that we've got it so good, and that's why it produces the results that you're talking about, and that's why you are a product of your environment, like I've said before. It's look how many successful people that you've had on your podcast and that I'm getting on my podcast. That is because the successful people that have done big shit are all around us. Like, we're literally surrounded by them.
Yeah.
I could fall over, 4 people worth 50 mil on the way to the gym, and the gym's only across the road.
It's interesting though that you put wealth to success, because for me that is like everything that I, over the last 4 or 5 years, have broken down about what success is to me.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. I like you calling me out on it as well.
Well,
I think the reason why wealth is success to me, right, and why I position wealth as part of success to me on a personal level, and why it means a lot to me, is because I didn't have a lot of money as a kid. Yeah. Like, in terms of like, and I wanted to change my family were never broke or nothing, like not as broke as some people's families and all that stuff. And I didn't come from a bad home, but I just noticed that money to me on a personal level was never abundant. So I want to create that abundance in my own life and then pass that abundance on to others. So I ultimately what I'm saying is I don't want to tie success to money. However, I also believe that money is a tool that can be used to open up so many doors and so many things and so much abundance in other areas of your life. Like, if you want to give to a charity, you need money. If you want to help a lot of people, you need a lot of money in a lot of respects.
I respectfully disagree, because I feel like
I like this.
If you want to help a charity, the best thing you can ever do is donate time, because I feel like time is worth so much more than any money. Yeah. And I think that in regards to so many charities that I do work with, all they need is time. And
do you know how you get more time though?
Yeah, not necessarily. I think, would you still consider me successful if I was sitting here today and I said to you, Frankie, I am so happy. There is not anything in my life I would change.
Happiness is the ultimate success. Happiness is the ultimate success. Happiness is about being present in where you are right now. Like, I'm present in this conversation, so I'm happy within the conversation, but I still would like to attract more money into my life and more abundance in all areas of my life, happiness and everything, whatever success is to me, so that I can go and touch more lives. Because to me, you know how I said about money, right? If I go create more money, right, then I can put more ads on for the podcast and put the podcast in another millionaires, couldn't I? Do you know what I'm saying?
But then it creates this effect where it's the ceiling effect, because the more money you get, the more money you chase. So then what happens is you go and buy the latest dress, the new Louis Vuitton bag. And I'm speaking from my experience. Yeah. I know about it. Yeah. The next Range Rover model. Then you look at, fuck the Range Rover, I want a G-Wagon. So then you go 380K.
Yeah.
And then
380K.
Trust me, I know about this. So then it's like you continuously are keeping on leveling up to the next thing, and it feels exactly the same. So you just keep chasing and chasing and chasing and chasing, and there's no ceiling on that financial happiness, because you're continuously getting to the next level. Yeah. And I think there's been a whole bunch of studies done. I know that within Australia, the happy scale in regards to what they did of this
money caps out at like 200K, doesn't it?
120. So after 120K, the happiness doesn't change. Yeah. And that's kind of what I base my own salary on, because after that, what am I doing with it?
Yeah.
And that's really important for me, because for a long time there, I was unhappy within my life. So instead I was chasing money. I was chasing success. I was chasing business success, because I was so unhappy within my own personal life. Yeah. Change that around. And now it's just like money flows 100%. Yeah. Money comes all the time, but I am no longer fixated or associated on the money that's coming in for the business.
So what would you say then is like, for everyone listening to this who wants to make money flow to them, what is your like blueprint for allowing money to flow?
Always be in alignment. And so if something's out of alignment, if you feel like you're always pushing shit up the hill or the creek or whatever the analogy actually is. Do you know that analogy?
Yeah, always pushing shit uphill, yeah.
I always have this like thing where all my friends say that I always quote things wrong.
Yeah.
So that's my thing. Is that it's not meant for you. So if you feel like you're always grinding to make something happen, it's probably not the right path. So in regards to me and like saying about those conversation cards, that was so easy because it was so authentic and true to me. If I was to push a product that I didn't really love or wasn't really in alignment with me and I was continuously grinding and it felt hard, it's always going to have that resistance to it, always.
Yeah, no, I like that. And do you know what? I've learned, I'm listening to you talk about that and the way that you broke that down, and even you having you call me out on me. No, I fucking like that. No, I rate that because because that subconsciously I'm tying money to success.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
Subconsciously. But even though I didn't believe that I was, but you called me out on it because I subconsciously said it.
Do you know much about Imprint Years?
No, tell me about it.
0 to 7. So
yeah.
0 to 7 is our imprint years, which is where all of our fundamental subconscious self-beliefs and belief systems are formed.
Yeah.
And obviously during that period, it's always formed from our parents, our circumstances, our home environment, schooling, whatever worldwide events were happening.
Yeah.
And we don't even know usually what our programming is because it's such a deep subconscious. And so when you do like NLP or timeline therapy, you learn what your belief systems are. And usually if you've got something in your life that's blocking you, it's coming from those 0 to 7 years of when it was actually formed.
Shall I tell you something freaky, right? So I went to, Molly Jane that owns Well With Chloe Zepp. So she came on my podcast. And one day I was just, how sometimes with podcasts, I suppose you don't do this, but I sometimes do. I'm like, I look at the analytics and I'm like, but why is that? Like, how when you've done it for you've put in a lot of time and a lot of effort, and you're constantly grinding, and you love what you love what you do, and you're adding value to the world, and then like you see the graph and it's like and it goes boom, and then it goes boom, and you're like, what the fuck was this about? You know what I mean? Like this dip here, and you start over analyzing it. So I was in that kind of headspace, and I was kind of like, I was self-judging myself too much, and I didn't realize I was doing this at this time. But I was putting myself under. I was being very critical of myself, just not being kind to myself, basically.
Yeah.
Right. And I'll openly, honestly tell you about that. And so Molly Jane was posting that she's doing these oracle card readings, and I thought, well, I've never done this, and normally I think that's a bit woo woo, but I thought, do you know what? I'll go down there and I feel like I've seen this for a reason. Mm-hmm. So I messaged Molly. I'm like, Molly, I want to do oracle card readings. Cool, free. Paid her the money. Goes round to Molly's house. She sits there. She gets into tune with the world and does all that tune stuff. And then she gets out these oracle cards and she starts pulling out these cards and then we get to one stage in this thing. And do you know what? These fucking cards are accurate as fuck.
Yeah.
Like, I'm serious. She's pulling out cards and telling me about what's going on in my life right now. And I'm like, fuck me. This cannot be a joke. Like, this girl knows me, but she doesn't know me to that extent. Right. And then she does this thing about my podcast, about my life. Right. And she says, I'm going to draw one card for every month from now until the next 6 months. So she puts them all out on the table, right? I pulled out like 5 of the best cards of the pack, right? And she said to me in that moment, and it fucking resonated massively. She said to me, Frankie, the reason why things aren't moving away as fast as you want them or as fluid as you want them in everything that you're doing is because your energy is blocked, because logically you've got over a lot of things that have happened in your life. Like, you've logically got over that girl leaving you, you've logically got over how you felt about your mum in your childhood, you've logically got over lack of money at certain times, you've logically got over all this stuff, but there's so much emotional trauma in your like energy sphere, she's saying,
your chakras,
in the chakras, and like, imagine there's a light shining around your body, which is your energy field, and then mine was like, she said, there's like, she's doing this, she's obviously connected at this point, and she's obviously doing this hand signals, and she's showing me where these blocks are, and I'm like, so I've always felt this. So she says to me, go and see Lino, which is like a breathwork guy on the Gold Coast, runs medicine, unbelievable guy. I'm going to have him on the podcast and do a whole podcast on this, but I know you're into breathwork. This is why I'm saying it, right? I started doing this breath work with Lino, right? And he said, I think you're going to find that there's going to be a lot of stored emotion in this. So we're doing this thing where we go into breath work for like an hour and a half. Fucking hell, Soph. I cannot tell you. On this floor here, right, where we're doing this podcast now, I did not realise how much fucking emotional trauma was trapped within my body. I mean, he said to me, when you're in this zone, really don't judge yourself for it, right? Just kind of observe it and see it and feel it and just sit with it. And I observed all this pain of my past running through and out of my body, like it's purging out of me. Like I had bottled up so much shit. And it's like when you've done all that work and you release all that things, you start to peel back the layers and understand who you are as a man. It's some powerful shit.
Massive. Breathwork for me changed the game. So I started doing breathwork in August last year.
Yeah.
And when I do it with Nicola Lay. Right. And for women, I love her, like changed my life. And the experiences that I had with her, when she first came to me, I was like, okay, like this is an hour out of my life. I am so busy. I'm never going to have the time to do this. And I was very I don't know, skeptical, I guess, of it. And being raised Jehovah's Witness, I was very much like, this is woo-woo. And I don't believe in this. So I was very standoffish, I guess. And throughout the process of this, so I said to her, it might help with my squats, it might help with my training. After the third session, because it took me a little while to get comfortable with her, I had so many hectic experiences. I had a full body experience where all of my pajamas, because I was in bed, all of my pajamas were dripping with sweat. And I woke up and I was covered in sweat. I had another experience where I essentially went back and rebirthed myself. I had a full body orgasm for the whole time in one of them. And then when I came up, I was like, I want that one again. I want that one all the times because it hasn't been that experience. I remembered some really hectic trauma stuff that happened to me as a kid that I was like.
So here's the thing I didn't understand, right? And Lena was explaining this to me as well. Like you can have trauma in your life. Like there's some people that have been abused by their old Uncle Phil or something, right? And they've been abused, but then they've forgotten and they've blocked it out as if it never happened. And then they go into breath work and they find out that all the problems and all the blocks in their life going forward are all predicated because they've never dealt with the emotion of what happened to them in the past and accepted it. Right, accepted it, felt into it, and I know it's sad, but here's what I'm trying to fucking say. I'm trying to say that when you look inward, right, looking outward is the worst way of finding success and finding whatever that is to you. It always requires you looking inward, and looking inward with breath is the way you can really move your life forward because it allows you to strip out all the trauma of your past that every single human on this planet, every one of you listening to this podcast right now, if you've never done it, you will have a shitload of trauma. Yeah. So, and another thing, there's a lot of people message me all the time, so I'm going, what business should I start online? Well, the answer is do breath work, strip all the emotions out of your body, then find out who you fucking actually are. When you find out who you truly are, then you can start leaning into things that light you up. And then you'll find the thing that you can start online.
100%. There's a book called What Happened to You?
Right.
And it's about trauma and trauma response.
Yeah.
And that is insane for uncovering. So trauma, I think that when we say the term trauma, a lot of people assume that it's going to be, like you mentioned, in regards to horrific incidences.
Yeah.
Trauma doesn't have to be a horrific incident. It could be that perhaps our mum had 4 children, they were super busy, and we didn't have our needs met emotionally, and we felt like we were not enough.
Yep.
And therefore, the way that presents as an adult is that we are incredibly anxious in a relationship and always feel like we're not enough.
Yep.
It could present as so many different things, from that tiny little incident of our mum not being able to come and read to us when we were 4.
Yeah.
So everything stems back from an incident, and that book really highlights that. But 100%. If you're not in alignment, you're never going to be in flow. So it's always making sure that whatever it is for you,
and this is it, right? But then you got to there's too many people that listen to this podcast right now that are judging themselves unfairly.
Oh, we all do it.
This is what I'm trying to say. We all fucking do it, right? We all judge ourselves unfairly, and I didn't realize how horrible I was to myself.
Yeah. Yep. And it presents in relationships that we accept as well, and the relationships that we tolerate. And I honestly believe that we bring in and call in people, and they could have a different bodysuit or whatever that looks like, but they're going to teach us the exact same lesson that we need every single time until we learn that lesson. And I know that that's happened for me because I kept calling in a certain type of person, and earlier this year, I fucking learnt that lesson the hard way, and I will never call that person in ever again.
And I presume you're talking about relationships. And it's the same with me and women. The two women that I've allowed past a certain point in my life in the last 12 to 18 months have both different women, obviously, but like they're both showing the same patterns of events, the same lessons to me as a man. And when I go back and I look at all my relationships with women in the past where it's gone past a certain point, every woman is showing me the same relationship, and I've chosen or been oblivious to the fact of what I should be looking at, right? And once as a man, I started to get to that point where I'm willing to look inward and willing to deal with trauma and willing to be open and honest about it on this podcast and all this other stuff that I'm trying to do to develop as a man, right? That's when things started to put in place, and I started to find these people, have conversations with people like yourself that opens up my mind to a different perspective, and just be willing to listen and understand of like, Frankie, do you realise subconsciously you said this? I'm like, fuck, I did. Where's that coming from? I want to, because when we finish this podcast, I will go and journal about that, and I'll find out where that came from, because that is important. It's not just identifying it. It's about, okay, that's a button. You want to go through life and remove as many buttons and triggers and all this so that you can be in flow. And I'm open to doing that. And that's why it's so important that we do podcasts like this together, like and stuff like that, because if this hits one person's ears, and it'll create massive amount of change in their life. Huge.
In our Flourish and Fulfilled community, we do this task called relationship reflections.
Yeah.
And essentially you look at like, there have to be an emotional response. So it can't be someone that you're like, oh yeah, Jane, I remember Jane. Has to be someone that triggers an emotional response for you still.
Yeah.
And then we work through these like 5 different pillars in regards to what first attracted you to them. How do you feel about them now? What was the favorite thing they did? And then at the end, you take the key words and you can essentially build out your perfect relationship partner from those key things. And that is so powerful in attracting in exactly what you want. Yeah, massive. But in regards to you mentioning before about things coming up for breathwork, one huge underlying subconscious belief for me was that men equal walking on eggshells, which is so not okay. So if a man made me feel like I would have to walk on eggshells around them, that would feel so comfortable, because that was a conditioned belief for me, that all men meant that I had to like be quiet, make sure that they were okay, like always care for them. And finding where that subconscious belief came from through breathwork was huge, because now I'm like, no, I matter. They don't always equal that. It doesn't have to mean violence. It doesn't have to mean me feeling like that. It was a huge thing for me to be like, oh, that's actually not something that I want, or a conditioned pattern or belief that I actually want to take forward.
Yeah. And do you know where that originally came from?
Yeah, it was my dad coming home from work, and like I fully during breathwork had this entire
what, and you having to be quiet through that time?
No, he came home from work, and as like he was a shift worker, so firemen do 2 days 2 nights 4 days off. Super stressful job. He ran Adelaide and would see so many horrific things. So when he'd come home from work, I would automatically be quiet, don't piss him off, don't do anything.
Yeah.
And like, he's a beautiful man, but that was enough to create that belief system now.
Yeah, I love it, and I love the fact that you can go back and you can look at things with a different perspective.
Yeah,
but you need to be willing to do the work. And do you know what? Someone said to me, Frankie, why don't you do mushrooms? Because it takes you to the point quicker. And I'm like, yes, it does, but by doing mushrooms first without doing the breath first, you're forgoing the work. So there's, to get yourself to the point where you release the DMT in your brain with breath, you have to do, good 10 minutes of breathing to get into the state, and then you start to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into your body, right? And into these feelings and feeling things and finding out which parts of your body are tight and where there's trauma and stress that needs to be released that's stored in you at a cellular level, right? If you just go and take a substance to get you there, even though it's a natural substance and I do believe in it, I think you're kind of cheating on the work. You need to learn the breath first, and then people add microdosing of mushrooms to it so they can see even more, but also do the work on the back end. Would you agree? Or
100%. I think for me, my experience of mushies was like not therapeutic. It was definitely not.
Yeah, but you were at a rave.
No, I wasn't. It was supposed to be therapeutic for me. Like, it was such a weird experience. I looked in the mirror, and do you know the alien out of The Simpsons?
Yeah.
I thought that was me. And like lost full body consciousness, couldn't walk. And I was just like, this is not a time.
Well, the difference between breath and the difference between mushrooms is simply one thing. One, you have to work to get to the point of like, with breathwork, you work to get to the point where you can go in deep on yourself.
Yeah.
But then when you finish the breath work and you're doing the reintegration phase, you can choose, or your guide can choose when to pull you out and all this stuff. And you can be fully compos mentis in the world right then and then. The problem with mushrooms is you take them, then you might have to wait an hour or 2 hours for them to kick in. Then they might be kicked in for between 4 or 8 hours, depending on the dose that you've taken. And then you don't know where you're going to go, and you can't control in the same way. So that's why I've not done them yet. I am open to doing them, but I'll only ever do them with someone like Lena who can guide me. I'm not just going to go sit around my mate's house, take two mushrooms or however much, and just sit there and wait for the world to enter my life. Like, it's just not a good idea.
I think the other massive thing is that with breath work, or the breath, is it's entirely within you.
Yes.
And you are your own home. So you are always going to be safe within your own home. One of my most hectic experiences for breath work is I had some womb trauma. That's what I'll say there. And
womb as in like birthing trauma.
No, well, I had a I don't know if I want to put it out there publicly. I had a experience when I was younger, and it presented in breath work. So I actually started bleeding from doing breath work. Right, okay. Like vaginally.
Yeah, because obviously like it was something to do with your period,
yeah.
was it? Yeah. So you'd had such trauma around when you had your first period, was it?
No, but it was just like an experience that I had that was obviously to do with my yoni and womb, and when I was doing the breath work, that's what came up, and I fully bled. Yeah, the mind is so powerful of being able to go in and release that trauma no matter how it actually looks and feels for you. Yeah. And I know that one of my girlfriends, she had it's probably not my story to say, but she's had a bad experience with certain things in her life. Yeah. And during breath work, it entirely pinpointed where everything came from. In one session.
Yeah. But that's the power of it. If you're listening to this right now, wouldn't you like to know where your hang-ups, traumas and triggers come from?
Yeah.
Because the sooner you can learn where they come from, the sooner you can start to repair and get beyond it. Like if you're always attracting if you're a girl out there and you're attracting the same kind of bloke, or you're a man that's attracting the same kind of woman, and you see the similar patterns happening, you probably need to do it.
But most people don't want to know because they like living that. Some people like being the victim. Some people like that cycle of chaos and drama, and some people don't want to see those patterns. They can't see those patterns. Yeah. And that's what I'm sort of realizing more and more, the more that I'm in my Flourish and Fulfilled community, of being able to have that self-growth and be able to encourage people to see that. A lot of women and men don't want to see it. They don't want to do the work. They don't want to heal. Yeah. So they like to be and sit into that victim mode of everyone else is the issue and I'm not the problem. And that's like my number one of my course is like, if you're coming into this course, you are not accepted unless you can actually understand that you are the problem, because we are all the problem.
Yeah. And we are all our own solution as well.
100%. 100%.
I literally sounds stupid as fuck, but I was before this podcast, about half an hour before, I was laying on that floor down there, and I was just laying there, and I was just like, no distractions, no phone, no nothing, just being present and just letting my mind go to different places, and just check in with myself and see what comes up.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned a few things about myself in 10-15 minutes. So I was like, fuck, I'm observing these thoughts as they're happening, and I'm like, oh, where does that stem from? Like, oh yeah, that's coming up. I need to do something around that. Like, why is that pissing me off?
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Why does that piss me off? And it's just like, I'll give you an example, right? You know how hard the podcasting game is. You've been in it a while yourself, right? Now, obviously, you've got a massive following, highly engaged following on social, and I'm trying to build mine, and we're all trying to go out there, be the best version of ourselves, and try to do bits, right? And then someone the other day, and it triggered me for a moment, and I had to go inward on myself and have a word with myself. But what happened was someone else released this podcast. These two girls released this podcast, and they went to number 1 with no episodes, or episode 1 they went to number 1. And I'm like, what the fuck is this about? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, but then I had to go inward on myself. I'm like, one, like, no one compares. Like, Soph's podcast can't compare to Frankie's podcast, and our podcast can't compare to anyone else's podcast, because we've all got different voices, and we've all got different messages, and we've all got different learnings that we can instill on other people. So that's one thing. Second thing is, why are you fucking comparing yourselves to this, that, and the other? And why are you surrounding yourself with people that are sending you this shit?
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like that caused the trigger. I'm like,
and I hope you went back and said, "Don't send me that."
Yeah. So I set some parameters around the fact of, like, look, I'm on my own path. I was in my own lane. I was not in that headspace until you sent me that, and I don't appreciate it, because, like, the way it was sent was like, hey, look at this. Podcasting's easy because they got to number 1 inside one episode. And I'm like, bruv, like, you're missing the fucking point.
And what's the intention behind them sending it? Because there's always intention behind everything. And
the intention was because of how they're feeling within themselves, and they're not feeling the best. They think, oh, do you know what? Crab in a bucket mentality. I'll pull him down.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? So I get it, and I will distance myself from that person now, and I understand that, and they've shown themselves in their true light, which is great for me. And if they listen to this podcast, which they probably won't, but you know what I mean. There's a lot of good reasons in it, but in that moment, I was like, do you know what? Fuck, that's pissed me off. Like, in terms of, like, when you put so much love and effort into, like, this is my fucking passion, so like, this is how I can get people like yourself to come to the podcast, is because it lights me up.
But
right?
instead of feeling like, oh, they're doing so well, you can literally internalize that and 100%. Be like, no matter what, this is going to be successful. No 100%. Matter what successful looks like to you, it will be successful because of how much passion and love I have behind it.
Yeah, 100%. When you know you're doing it for the right reasons, you don't have to worry about the external things, and don't have to worry about this. That's why I've never had a problem booking guests and all this stuff, and getting big guests like yourself on, because I know that the big guests will come, because I believe that I have the conversation skills to support and facilitate having them on the podcast, and that will touch enough people's ears as a result of them being here. So I know that, and it's just again, it came to a point where I'm self-judging myself. But the reason I'm sharing this on this podcast is because there's a lot of people that might be listening to this that might do that every day in their life in other respects, and they need to hear it, that we all go through that. Like,
100%.
I'm sure there's times in your life where you go through that.
Oh, 100%. I just love the fact that you were sitting there and allowing yourself to be still and bored. Because I feel like at the moment we live in a society that teaches us that boredom is a negative. We have phones that are literally glued to us 24/7. We have social media. We have Facebook. We have kids, jobs, TV, Netflix, movies, every single thing that's always flashing in front of our eyes. And I know that even in, like, the self-help game is that we sit down but we journal. And that's still some form of distraction to take away from our thoughts.
That's still busyness.
It is. Yeah. And when we're actually just still in that moment, that is when the best possible creative ideas come to me. That's when the best possible flow, like, happens for me. So if I am such a big believer of needing half an hour a day on my own. Like, that is my absolute thing. Whether it's driving to somewhere, whether it's sitting on the beach, whether it's sitting in my room, being on my own. Because remember, I've got 4 kids. So that time alone, half an hour might not seem like a lot.
No, half an hour is a long time to let your mind wander.
Huge acupuncture.
But I also believe you shouldn't do it in the car. I mean, I know you drive the car on like autopilot and this that, and the other, but there's still too much going on. I actually believe your best sitting and thinking time will happen if you just go and sit under a tree somewhere in nature, or sit by the ocean or by a lake.
The ocean is my thing. Little Pisces girl over here.
Anywhere near water, where you've just got water noise and not too much else noise, just sitting there and looking out at it and just seeing what comes up. And with water as well, I know this is going to sound woo-woo, but water gives you signs.
Yeah.
Like, I was sat there one day, just out the back of my mate's house, just letting my mind like wander, and I just sat there and I just looked over the edge and I was staring at this water, and then a dolphin just pops up and just looks at me straight in the eyes, and it's like I had this real strange. I was like, "What the fuck's going on here?" Can
you guys see this?
My mate's like, "Fuck, did you see that?" I'm like, "Yeah," because I thought I was fucking
hallucinating.
Yeah, I thought, "What the fuck's going on here?" But like, you know how like. And there's something going on in my mind. I won't explain it too much on this podcast because I want to drop it on another podcast. But there's something going on in my mind at the time that dolphin fully represented something that was coming up in my mind on a different spectrum.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's fucking weird, man.
Life is weird though. Like life always happens to us, and I just genuinely believe that. Like, if something's happening to me in the moment, no matter how hard it is or no matter how shit it feels in that exact moment, I know that I'll be able to reflect back and take a lesson from it. And that's how it's always been. In the hardest times, I'm like, I'm so grateful that I went through that to get to where I am today. And there was times where I was just like, I would rather be dead than be in this moment. Yeah. And now, even though it's still fairly fresh, say like 4 months ago, I can sit back and be like, I'm glad I went through it.
I think one of those moments for you is obviously when you'd made all that money off the back of doing all that stuff, and then you lost it all. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, like, I have to be very careful in regards to talking about this.
Yeah, don't infringe on any legal cases, because I don't need that drama.
I think for me, like, as I mentioned earlier, I was chasing what everyone else's idea of success was. And there was no limit in regards to what my goals were. So I had just had 2 newborn twins.
Yeah.
And we owned a gym. So the girls were at the gym with us. I had the boys as well. I was running 4 businesses at the time. 5 businesses at the time. 5
7-figure businesses.
One was not 7-figure, but yeah, the rest were.
Yeah.
And was just grinding and grinding and grinding to be able to reach the next milestone. And I was in this pattern where I wouldn't even celebrate. We would launch a product and I would go to school pickup. We would launch a product and within 5 minutes I would be working on next launch. I would never sit in the moment and actually be like, wow, that was amazing. Like, congratulations, guys. This is really good.
Yeah.
I just was grinding to the next thing. And then when I went through that whole court case, and I have to be so careful with what I say, but I won what I wanted, and in the process lost everything from legal fees.
Yeah, so to put a bit of context around what you're saying, and because you're not saying it, I'll just put a bit of context around it. Like, but basically what happens is in court cases is the other side will potentially know how much money you have to fight a case, and they'll know how much the court costs per day plus your legal fees. They'll calculate it and they will drag and adjourn the case out for that long, so that even if you do win on paper and you win the battle, you've lost all your money on the way to win the battle. That's essentially what you're saying. And
the hard thing with that is that usually it's an ego fight.
Yeah,
whereas 100%. For me, it wasn't. It was like my baby.
You were protecting something that you believe that you own the rights to, which is what you did.
Yeah, and still though, like, even though it's my baby and it was coming from a place of emotion.
Yeah.
When emotion takes over, we can't logically think.
Yeah.
So like, that was the hardest thing for me, is that there's an ego in emotion still. And so the bod is my baby. It is like, it was born from being a single mum. It was born, when I think about the bod, I think about all those hard times of studying at night, working 2 jobs, grinding my ass off, being able to not even afford to put sausages and bread on the table to feed my kids.
Yeah, there's a lot. Like, you've attached a lot of emotion to that. A lot of emotions to that because of the journey you went through to create the bod, and because that was your app, wasn't it?
Well, it's my health and fitness version or leg of my brand, and it's everything that I have in regards to health and fitness and training and nutrition and recipes in the bod, and it's just a name. I could call that fucking Sparkling Sophie and it would be the exact same product.
And people would still buy into it because this is what I want people to realise as well, right? People don't buy the thing. They buy why you do it.
Yeah, the emotion behind it.
They buy you as a person. They don't buy, like, there's things that when I will start releasing certain digital products and certain physical products in the future, and people will buy them because they know, like, and trust me on a certain level in regards to those products, and they'll get a feeling from buying that from me. You can't recreate that. When you've created value in someone else's life, way above whatever you're exchanging that for, which is what you do and what I'm trying to do and everything else is like that. It's like they will. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't. The name is really and the logo and all this shit that people get trapped in. It's just bullshit. There's nothing. It's everyone who's never done a business online will go first for logos and tech, right? Logos and tech aren't where you start.
No. It's interesting because my best friend, she's still my best friend, but at the time she was saying to me, Soph, let it go. Like, let it go. And I was like, ego. Always. Like, even though for me it was the emotional ego, it was still ego.
Yeah, but here's the thing, right? Because you know that now, but you do.
Still do the same thing.
but then you need to do work on that.
Yeah, 100%. Because for me, it was that, and even like when I talk about the bod and how
you get a feeling. Yeah,
I still just get like it's mine. Like it's just like everything from start to finish to get to this point. It is my baby. I feel like it's one of my children.
But they can. People can take your name or copy names, copy logos, all this shit, IP. But they can't copy the feeling the love that went into what you create, and they can't copy the feeling that creates within your customer. And your customer isn't going to buy that off someone else because they're not going to get the same feeling.
No, people will never forget how you made them feel.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. This is why it's so important that the thing that happened to you, obviously. We can't get into it too deep, but what happened to you that made you lose all that money was a great lesson.
Huge.
Great lesson when you think back. Because what you've done since has eclipsed it.
Well, it entirely changed my life, and whether that's for the better or for the worse, and I think that depends on who you're talking to in regards to that. So I struggled for many months after that. Like, I didn't leave the house at one point for 8 weeks. I had such severe social anxiety. I spiraled into depression and to the biggest burnout, and I just didn't even leave home. I felt like I'd worked for 7 years straight. And when I say 7 years straight, I mean it.
Yeah.
Like, I had my twins via C-section. And that night, I was on my laptop working. The next day, we had the news there doing interviews. Like, it never stopped. I didn't have, as a director of a company, you're not entitled to maternity leave because they can't prove that you're taking time off. So financially, I was in this point in my life where I had to work. Like, I didn't have a choice but to work.
Yeah.
And so I'd been in this position where I was like pretty like free flowing to grind again. And I couldn't do it anymore. I didn't want to do it anymore. I felt like I had worked so long to get to this point and lost it all. So why would I do that again?
Yeah.
From there, we moved to the beach. So we moved entirely away from where we were living.
Yeah. So you made
so many changes within our life. I left my husband. I closed down our gym, which was taking so much time and costing us so much money. Of having to show up as well.
Yeah.
And just went entirely like, not doing it. I'm not doing anything for anybody that doesn't make me feel 100% in alignment. And it was that moment for me that I had to get to that point of being like, fuck this. I never want to do anything for anybody else that's going to make me feel like that again.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I went through that, because if I didn't go through that, I would still be people pleasing. I would still continuously be putting everyone else's needs above my own. I would still be making sure everyone was okay and burning myself out. And now, no way.
Yeah. Like you just do what you want to do when you want to do it.
Love and meaning always.
and that's the thing, you see, when I actually think of actually what success is to me. Success to me is freedom of time.
100%.
It really is freedom of time when I actually really nail it down. I want freedom of time, freedom of place, freedom of who I spend my time with.
Have you ever worked out what your highest core values are? Have you ever done that?
I did something, but I did something along core values, but I can't remember exactly what they were. Like,
so after doing like my NLP qualifications,
yeah,
it really highlighted to me what my core values were and why I do what I do, which was after all of that.
Yeah.
So my highest core value is freedom.
Yeah.
And that presents in everything. The way that I parent, the way that I run my business, the way that I am in relationships.
Yeah.
Every single way that I am, decision I make comes from a place of making sure that I have freedom.
Yeah, 100%. I reckon I would have grown content removal as a business to a high 7 figures, probably onward to 8 figures, if I had not had freedom on my high as I have in my life. Because content removal as a business has allowed me to meet lots of people and help lots of people that I actually like and that I can connect to, that I have good relationships with. And that's the fulfillment side of it, and helping them sort out issues online and stuff. That fills me up. But actual content removal itself, and having 50 staff in an office and having all that drama, just to flip it from multiple in a negative energy space like content removal. Don't forget, like when you're dealing with people that need to remove online content, you're dealing with negative emotions. You're dealing with all this drama. Like you're basically living in a dark art. You're doing it for the right reasons. You're doing it for good people, but you're living in a dark art.
Yeah.
To multiply that and go and get 50 staff, go and get an office and start to scale that would not align with me at all. Like
that was a massive thing for me as well. Having everyone think that success was having an office, a gym, all these staff.
Yeah.
I am so grateful for my team now.
Yeah.
I don't have any bitching. I don't have any issues. I don't even remember the last HR issue.
Yeah.
Which,
how many people do you employ now?
Oh, I can't even tell you, because it's such a beautiful synchrony of flow between the businesses, as well as using contractors.
Right, okay, yeah.
So that's the biggest change for me. Rather than having staff who come to a place, and now we have a gym in Chindra as well. So we don't even have people come to our gym. Everyone works from home. Everyone works remotely. Everyone's time toggled, so that that's the way that we manage things.
Yeah.
And when we were running from an office with staff, I felt like I was having to constantly, most of my time
mother
people. And managing conflict.
Yeah.
Whereas now there's just nothing.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we're living in an age where certain types of businesses that me and you are trying to create, and certain levels of success what success is to us that we're trying to create in the world, you don't need physical locations, 30, 40 staff, because I would rather just pay the videographer more and have him come in on his time with his equipment, and he just turns up and does it, rather than me having to provide all the equipment, all the training, deal with the fact that he doesn't like Stacey, who's in fucking graphic design. Do you know what I mean? Like, fuck me. I do not have the energy capacity to deal with that just to add another 10 or 15, 20 million over my lifetime. It's just not worth it.
The other thing when it comes to staffing is, let's just say in Burleigh, where our gym was, we have,
what gym was it at the time?
Called Hold Your Own.
Yeah.
And Hold Your Own is still a coaching business that Nath runs. So Nath's my ex-husband, beautiful angel man. Love him.
Was Hold Your Own the new, was that where Macro Gym is now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we built that.
Yeah.
So we started that in 2014.
Yeah.
And
Mike's been on the podcast. Yeah, I didn't realise that.
So he still runs that as a coaching business online, and changes so many people's lives. And he's very inspirational, but he doesn't like social media, so he's very quiet on socials. But he's still doing that online. So when you look at the space of Burleigh, let's say that the most that somebody wants to travel is 45 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So you've got a 45 minute radius
of Burleigh,
of talent
Yeah.
that you can attract in for any specific job.
Yep.
If you open that role up worldwide, you have the potential to be able to get somebody that is so much more skilled, experienced, loves their job even more than somebody in that radius because they have to go and work from an office. And I think that's the biggest lesson that COVID has really taught us, is that we're able to open up now and do things in such a technology-based world that we're moving towards in 2022 rather than being stuck in this office environment. And I know that for us, we have people all over the world working for us now. And my only prerequisite is that you want to be here and you want to grow this business as much as what I do, and you love this as much as what I do. If you don't want to be here, don't be here.
Also, I think gyms, they can be extremely profitable. However, there's a massive cash grab. And obviously, when you got rid of that when COVID
March.
hit.
So in regards to the gym, we were paying $8,500 a month. You do the maths on a gym membership, you can't make money there. So in regards to being profitable, there's no way that can be profitable at $8,500 rent per month. So the way that we were making money on that is our online coaching. Which again, I'll reiterate here, you can do from anywhere. And so when you put it on the whiteboard or on paper, you can't make money from a gym that's $8,500 a month rent.
It's all about what your commercial rent is to start with, and how much memberships are. But then there's always there are many ways to make money inside a gym with your upsells on supplement, coaching, all this other stuff. But like you say, just having a physical location, which means you've got to have staff, which means you've got hard costs, which means if you sell in other stuff like supplements, all those hard costs that you have as a business, just all drain the life out of you. And then COVID hits, and it's like, well,
shut down again.
Shut down, game over.
And it's interesting because in regards to having a gym space, is that I now have like the Bod HQ down where in Chindra. And it's so beautiful. It's not commercial. No one trains there. It's enough space for us to be able to do any coaching out of.
And content creation,
all of like our virtual gym workouts and things like that at a fraction of the price. No one has to work from there. And it's such a incredible space to be able to have.
I love the fact that you identified that, because I think that would have ended up as another situation potentially where you're walking yourself down a path where you start losing money again.
We were losing money on that. It was a constant balance, but we were for many years. And again, you look at the emotional attachment behind it. Whereas the emotional attachment wasn't from me, it was from my ex. And he had so much emotional attachment that who am I if I don't have this gym? And that was crushing for him. Huge, absolutely soul destroying for him to have to close that down, because that was his emotional attachment. So both of us went through the exact same things in the space of 2 years.
Because I didn't, until we sat down and had this story, I didn't realise I had this story from Mike's perspective on the podcast as well. And him, because obviously his dream was to have a gym, and obviously he created this supplement brand that was doing 10-12 million a year to be able to do it and buy it. So even if he loses money on it,
it's just a tax write-off for him.
It's just a tax write-off, so it's in a different position. But obviously for Nath, he wasn't in that position himself.
No,
because obviously perhaps potentially you were the breadwinner as well. So you're like, well, I don't want to. I'm working my ass off, and all my stuff online. I don't want to generate revenues just to pay for an ego boost.
And I'd also just gone through a massive burnout of just feeling like every single financial thing was on me. Every single I was working so much. I couldn't possibly have to add another $8,500 per month rent to my workload. So everything was pulled back. I closed businesses left, right, centre.
Here's something I want to understand, right? When you're a successful woman like yourself, in monetary terms, right, when you're turning over like multiple seven figures, do you find that's quite intimidating for men to try and come into your life for like dating and stuff like that?
So it's interesting, like, I know the media have reported that I'm this man-eater. So that was like one of the articles that was out there, that I'm a man-eater. I haven't dated. So Nathan and I broke up, and then I've dated like 2 guys publicly, or 3 guys publicly.
Or 7.
I'm like, or 29.
Oh, God, I love you sometimes.
Funny.
God.
And so it depends.
Go on.
So good, guys. So good. In regards to 100% is the answer to that, depending on who they are. So I look at Ryan and like I am such a cradle snatcher. So he's only 20, just turned 27.
This is the boyfriend.
This is the ex, but now back together. He is not in any way, shape or form intimidated by the amount I earn, what I do for a job, even media he's not intimidated by. He doesn't care. Yeah. He doesn't care about men. He doesn't care about anything to do with that. Like he is just so secure in the person he is.
Yeah.
There is no sense of him feeling like he's not good enough because of any of that.
Do you think it takes a strong man then to be able to not be intimidated by that?
I think for him, 100%, I think you have to be secure, number one, but also his upbringing. He comes from a really good family. Like his parents are still together. They are very firm in regards to being kind and the people that they are and instilling those values that money doesn't have any reference in regards to success or who they are, because that's huge for him as well.
Here's something then I'd like your opinion on. Controversial, but I think it's the truth. Something that I've identified with is the fact that my mum and dad have been married 41 years, right? And they've obviously worked at that, and I've seen them work at it, and I've seen the unconditional love that comes from not giving up on each other. When I've tried to date women that don't come from that background, I don't feel like the work ethic of like
of a relationship,
is in them. Do you agree, or is that do you think that pattern can be broken within? Because obviously I understand that you can't. I'm not here to judge someone that's come from, say, a broken home, whether you're a man or a woman. I'm not doing that. I'm just asking you from your experience. Do you think that it has an effect on someone like me who's seen things one way and so I'm conditioned now. I'm conditioned. I'm like, well, that's how life's meant to be, and subconsciously, and they're conditioned to like, well, that didn't work, so I've got to get out quick because this isn't going to work.
I love this question. It's not controversial. I feel like it's such a good question. I've seen people, so an abusive ex that I had whose parents are still together, and the reason that he is abusive is because he's seen it with his family and he's seen it with his parents and he's conditioned to that.
Yep.
Should they stay together? No. Should they have ever stayed together? No. Do they believe in unconditional love? Yes. Yep. And I think that's kind of also the reverse effect of that, of having that unconditional love. Love shouldn't be unconditional. If there is abuse in a relationship, if it's toxic, get the fuck out of there. If you decide you don't want to be in a relationship, get out of there. So totally different probably opinion to you. I'm trying not to have an opinion one way or the other on it. I'm just asking a woman that's obviously worldly in these opinions and obviously been through these types of scenarios with different partners that you've dealt with, and you've obviously seen it firsthand. So from someone like me, I'm like, well, it would be stupid not to ask the question. When I honestly believe that everything that we are is from our parents. And like, you even look at Nathan and I in our relationship, like we are so close. Like that was him before. Like,
who's the ball geezer? Who's the ball geezer on Instagram stories?
He's not. He doesn't even go on Instagram. But his parents are separated or divorced. They've been they were separated like 11 years ago. They still do family dinners. They still see the kids together. And it sets up that beautiful example for him and I, because now that we're not together, we have that example of his parents of being like that. And that's exactly how we are. We still go to dinner together. We still see the kids together. The kids come and go. We do. And it blows everyone's mind on social media because they're like, hey, you guys back together? We're like, no, we're co-parenting. Like, these are our kids. We will always be this way.
I like that.
It's so beautiful. And the kids have never seen us argue. They've never seen us have any sort of horrible hate towards each other. And if the boys, like last weekend, Ryder was like, I want to go to Dad's this weekend. I was like, yeah, cool. Went and dropped him to the border. So there's no like animosity between the kids, and they know that they can always come and go between. And I think that's really important. When it comes to relationships, Nathan and I worked so hard before we called it quits. We got back together 2 or 3 times. We separated for 6 months. We got back together. We separated for 6 months. We saw a relationship coach, Brad Fennell, who's here in Burleigh, who is an absolute honey. I love him so much. And it wouldn't have been like we would not have been able to have the amicable split and relationship we have today if it wasn't for Brad, hands down.
Yeah.
He is the best facilitator to be able to sit in a room and hold your space, hold my space, and be able to make us come together in a really amicable way. And I feel like people walk away from relationships way too quick, 100%.
Yeah.
However, I do think that there's so many instances where it's just like we hang on to a relationship because there seems to be some sort of title or reward or glory in staying together for the kids or for the business or for whatever reason, and it should have been called off a long time ago. So I do see the total opposites here in regards to relationships and should you stay, should you go, and do you see beauty in that? And I think, in my opinion, it takes a while to get to know someone. So dating now, I dated a guy, 4 weeks is the relationship, and it was public and it was everywhere, and I just should have I should have walked away at the first red flag, which was day one. And I didn't because I was scared of media opinion.
The first red flag was the picture in the lift.
Day one. Should have been, no, that was not even that one. And then,
Different guy.
That's 27. That's date number 27. So I definitely think that we hang on for too long because we do have this idea that...
The idealistic. So what I noticed from a personal standpoint is I noticed that a lot of emotionally unavailable women, beautiful ones, were turned up in my life. Mm-hmm. So I used to fucking outwardly blame the fact that all these women were emotionally unavailable and like
projection.
Yeah, 100%. I'm admitting it.
I know. I'm glad. I was just helping you along there.
So I thought. So then I came to the conclusion was like, fuck. This is the common denominator here is you, Frankie boy. You got to look inward. And when I started to look inward, I'm like, shit. That all comes from the feeling that I had around my mum, and it was quite. It's quite. Intimidating to think that every relationship you've had with a woman your entire life has got and ended at certain points, and you've attracted those certain women into your life because of this instilled thing that you instilled with you from when you were a child and how you felt about certain situations that came up in your younger life.
100%. And now having to navigate and change those patterns.
Now having to break patterns, flip perspectives, i.e. the whole realm, and why I do this podcast is to help people break patterns and flip perspectives in their life, whatever the patterns and perspectives are they need to break for them. That's why I do this. So it's like if I say I'm doing that but then don't authentically go and do that myself, I'm fucking lying to myself.
Have you ever done attachment theory? Do you know what your attachment style is?
No.
So powerful. So game-changingly powerful.
Break it down.
All right. So I'm anxious. So there's anxious. Right. There's avoidant.
Right.
There's dismissive. And there's anxious avoidant.
Right. Okay.
And I'm anxious. No, there's secure. Sorry. So there's anxious, there's avoidant, there's secure, and then there's dismissive. And then there's anxious avoidant off the side. So anxious avoidant has been a newly coined term in the last 5 years, whereas these ones have been around for quite a while.
Yeah.
Now, an anxious attached partner and an avoidant attached partner will always see the push-pull roller coaster relationship, because an anxious attached person is always like, love me, need me, where are you, I need you. And an avoidant is always like, give me space, dude, like chill the fuck out, like I'm over here with my mates. Stop smothering me. So they always push back. And then as the anxious person's getting pushed back, they pull harder. And so you've got this push-pull of this relationship in regards to an anxious and avoidant attached.
Yeah.
A dismissive is usually very disjointed in regards to their relationships, their emotions. They're a bit disconnected. They can't really make huge connections or commitments in relationships. A secure will easily adapt to a relationship, know that there's numerous partners that could be a perfect partner, and a secure attached person is able to have a buffering effect on an avoidant and an anxious. So what happens is that if you're an avoidant attached and you're with a secure attached person, it calms the nervous system because a secure attached knows how to be able to handle an anxious attached attachment style.
So you've got to find out what type you are, identify what type of woman you need in your life, and then look for that type that fits the mold of what you want.
I can't even tell you how much of a game changer it is. So I'm an anxiously, and this is all stemmed from childhood. So I'm an anxiously attached.
So my method of going, this was my before this podcast, this was my previous method, right? This is my previous method. Is she good looking? Yes.
Took.
Can I have banter? Yes.
Took.
Okay, I'll date you.
No! There is so much more. There is so much more because
I know, I'm bantering.
But even an anxious and avoidant, they could work out. They could have some great relationship years, but it'll be very chaotic.
Yeah.
It'll always have that push-pull, that roller coaster style. Whereas anxious and secure, it'll just be contentment. It'll be happiness. It'll just be. Do you know what I mean?
Are you gonna write this book down for me? So
I will definitely.
When you write down all these resources, I'll put them in the show notes.
Yeah,
because
I
think people need to read these books, open their mind up. Obviously, we'll put links to all your other stuff in the show notes so they can see all your businesses. When I started this podcast, I thought we were going to go into like your whole journey in businesses and being about, but I actually love the fact of where we've dived off in so many different angles and ways on this podcast already. Like I'm just hyped about it.
Yeah, sorry.
No. I'm buzzed about it.
I'm glad.
I'm buzzed about it. But it's been an absolute game changer having you on. I suppose. I know you're going to record another 4 podcasts after this. That's why I'm like conscious of the time and obviously got to wrap it up with you. But like honestly, it's been hyped. I think there's so much value in this beyond what I thought we were going to drop. Do you know what I mean?
Is there anything in particular that you wanted to talk about that we didn't talk about? I'm sorry.
I did. Well, there was one thing you mentioned to me that I thought was fucking funny as fuck.
What?
you know.
Go on then.
Do you want to break it down?
Yeah, okay. I'm actually going to put this from an educational perspective.
Right. So just to get a bit of backstory then. A bit of backstory. I rock up at the cafe. There's 2 backstories. I rock up at the cafe. I said, do you want a drink? Obviously I'm going to get you a drink. She'd already got a drink. I said to her, do you want an almond croissant? She looks at me and goes, I can't have... What did you say to me?
I don't know.
I can't have an almond croissant because I'm fat and all this. She had this... I'm like, you're talking bollocks, right? I'll get you an almond croissant. Anyway, sit down for this almond croissant. And we sat there, we're enjoying a nice almond croissant together. It's like proper, like... decent. And then she pulls out,
I got fingered by a chick. However, it didn't happen like that. It didn't even start.
I love this.
It didn't start like this. Okay, yes. Now guys, you know how there's your side of the story, my side of the story, and then the truth. So we sat down and I've recently had surgery and reacted to the surgery and needed to have these steroids called prednisone. And they made me gain all this water fluid. And the doctor actually said to me, like, chill out, Soph, like, stop eating donuts because this is a lot. So I gained like 7 kilos in a week. And Charlie, who owns Trends, which is where I get my hair done, was where we were. And Charlie's been teasing me so much. Every day he sees my stories and gives me like some shit about it. Anyway, so I'm sitting there. I'm like, I guarantee you Charlie's going to see that I've got a fucking croissant in front of me. He walks behind us and he's like, oh, really? What are you eating? So, of course, he was teasing me about that. And then Frankie's like, so what sort of guests do you have on your podcast? And I was like, well, I have everybody from authors to yoni mapping. And he's like, what is yoni mapping? And I said, well, essentially I got fingered by a chick. And he's like, you what?
I said, break this down for me is what I said. I said, break this down for me. I look, don't get me wrong, I've seen this a fair few times in my life. But
oh, no. What was it, YouPorn?
Yeah, well, I've been in a few situations. We won't go into those right now. But anyway,
it's not sexual at all. It's not. All right. So
I say that all the time down Burley Pav. I'm like, don't worry, darling. This is not sexual at all. Don't worry. Don't mind me. I'm just fingering you at the bar.
It's not. Okay. All right. So yoni mapping is essentially releasing trauma from your yoni. Now, your yoni is all of your reproductive system, your vagina, your vulva, your ovaries, everything to do with your yoni. It's releasing trauma. So what she does is the first time that you go in, she basically...
Go in, come on.
Pun intended.
Go in.
The first time that she goes in, She essentially does what I believe should happen in all schools, but I don't think that girls have the emotional maturity to be able to actually handle it at that age. But I think that this needs to be taught maybe in year 12 for women and men.
Yeah.
So she...
Don't worry, lads. Instructional video coming after the podcast.
Do you know, actually, I think that she does that on her Instagram. I'm not even kidding. It's the Erotic Alchemist is her name. The Erotic Alchemist.
There you go, lads. Sort yourselves out.
She essentially does the entire anatomy of your vagina, your clitoris, your ovaries. And she touches each individual point so that your brain will make the connection of what each individual feeling feels like, no guy goes down there and is like, I'm just going to stimulate your clitoris now. How does that feel? No one says that. Have you ever said that?
It's not something I thought of.
See?
I'm not putting an instruction video next to me doing it. No.
Exactly. So, like, even like as a woman who, let's say someone...
Do you want me to put notes in next time?
Yes.
So I'm just going down... Right now.
But maybe
my name is Frankie Lee and I'm going down on you to stimulate your clitoris.
There's actually a David Attenborough voice. I love that.
And here we have a young Frankie Lee. He is going down on his partner to stimulate her clitoris.
Do you know, but this is the thing though, there's so many girls out there that don't even know what they like because they don't even know what it feels like.
Because they've not been round.
No, it's not even that. Like, so growing up, it was such a, like, you would have sex, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. The guy would come.
Yeah.
And do you know how often this happens in the conversations that we're having, like in the Flourish and Fulfilled group? Most women, my age, so 30,
I've never had an orgasm.
No.
Yeah.
So it is so...
I've had to rescue a few situations for a few women on this couch.
But see, this is the thing though. Like it's literally on this couch. I love that for me. I'm currently sitting in Frankie's...
Not on this couch. No, I never said nothing about the couch. What are you talking about? I never said nothing about it. You just assumed the couch. But what I'm saying is, I say to women this, right? I say you can, obviously you can't guarantee yourself an orgasm with a man. You can't guarantee yourself an orgasm, but you can stop bad sex in advance. And the way you stop bad sex is like if you've not had like the proper conversation with the man and got a mental stimulating connection, right? You shouldn't proceed to the next step, right? If he doesn't go down on you and service you in that mannerisms and show that he's selfless in that respect, you should not proceed to the next step. So Can we
please clap this?
You can pretty much guarantee yourself, like, not guarantee yourself an orgasm, but like you can put yourself in a better position as a woman to have an orgasm if you fucking just carry out the 2 steps that I've just said.
But sex is such an energy exchange that people don't even realise.
Of course, that's why the most important thing about having sex with another human being is the fact that you have stimulated in the mentals before you let them go down on you and all this other stuff. Like,
but unfortunately, in today's age, we have been taught as women that we associate sex with love. And so for so many women, and this is what I'm seeing all the time in my forum right now, is that we associate sex with love. So women are going out there craving love by having sex, feeling like shit after, and it's the vicious cycle. So when it comes to yoni mapping, so let's just go entirely left of field here. A woman has a baby and they have scarring. So they've torn and the scar tissue has formed.
This is so good for men to listen to and understand this. So I really believe this is powerful, lads. So tune your fucking ears in right now.
So what actually happens is like our labias, right? So perhaps you've had a baby, it's torn. You've got scar tissue build up and you can't even feel the sensations. By having one of these yoni mapping massages, she uses different techniques that brings the blood flow back into those veins to be able to stimulate that feeling again.
Right.
And so it is so powerful. And I know this from experience because I went in there afterwards, my orgasms were so much stronger. But not only that though, even after her going in and having that, so she touches your cervix, but like a cervix is supposed to be touched like this, like a drumming effect, not rubbed. And that's like a really deep thing. So that obviously it'd be a penis that would touch it, not a finger. And so you're supposed to actually stimulate it. And you've got all these different zones to be able to have an orgasm. So there's so many different areas in regards to the yoni mapping. But even like your labia, a normal labia will extend by 14 centimeters.
Most men think labia is a country.
No, they don't. Surely not.
I'm joking.
Surely not.
I'm joking. I'm just joking.
Well, do you know that this week in our forum, a lot of women didn't even know we had 3 holes as a female. So this is something that it's just like...
Where's this podcast disappeared to?
Sorry. But there is so much power in education for women to actually know our anatomy.
Educate, go on. 3 holes, go on.
3 holes, labia is 14 centimetres long. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was 14 centimetres. All I know is I go all right.
How do you know that though? Because what, girls say that?
No, because it got reviewed on the Flourish forum.
Yeah, everyone's like, Frankie Lou. Catch me in the forum. So yeah, that was where that conversation went.
So yeah, so that was how we.
That was our brunch.
That was our brunch. I literally learned all this at brunch with Sophie, and I'm like, oh well, I reckon we should probably tell that story on the podcast.
And I am literally an open book, so I'm like, yeah, cool, I don't care.
But the premise of this podcast has basically been. I basically thought the premise of this podcast was how it was going to be like how you'd obviously built the 7-figure businesses and all that stuff, but I actually there's more value in what we've discussed than just the business stuff. But essentially what you've been through is you came from nothing and you put your heart and soul into something you believed in. You didn't pick just a random product. You put your heart and soul into something, and that's why everything that you've done has worked, right? You let your ego take a little bit over. You had a battle that you shouldn't have probably had, but you lost it all. But then you came back because you returned to just pursuing things that lit you up on a different level, and that's why you're doing so well in all areas of your life. And I just want to say, like, I've loved this conversation with you. This has been one of my favourite fucking conversations because it's so fucking, like, every conversation I have is fucking raw and honest, but this is like, you know what I mean? I've never had a chick say that on the podcast before about getting fingered, like, honestly, and if I said that, I'd get so much shit. So I'm just fucking glad to have you.
Thanks.
You've
for having me.
Just been a full-on banter bus. This is why me and you are friends. I tell you, this is it, right? I'm just saying, you can't mention fingering on the podcast and not follow me on Instagram now. It's a rule. Anyway, but drop your links and drop your website so people can go and see the actual businesses that you run on the back end of being such an absolute funny legend.
So my website is sophieguidolin.com.au, and Guidolin is spelled Guidolin, and then I have thebod.com.au, which is the health and fitness element, and then Flourish and Fulfilled, which is kind of like my baby and my passion project of all things like mindset and toying everything back in together. Yeah. My Instagram is just my name, which is Sophie_Guidolin.
Yeah, she's the one that follows Frankie Lee.
I was saying to Frankie earlier, I deliberately don't consume online. Like, it's one of my big things is I don't follow anyone online. I don't log on to Instagram to scroll, and it stops that for me. Yeah.
But she's making an exception. Do you know what I mean?
You'll see, like, the thumbnail for this will be like,
she'll follow me and then she'll put me on mute.
Mute stories.
No, but honestly, like, this been really eye opening. Like, there's so much learning in this. I think it's all about going back to your true self and understanding. Look, behind all the banter in this podcast, the fundamental thing I want you to pick up from this, if you've got to this point, is the fact that looking inward is the only game in town, and that'll allow you to rather than impress. Like, everyone who's looking external is looking to impress, and if you want to learn to express yourself, you have to look inward.
100%, and I love that wrap up. That is so beautiful.
How was that?
Really good.
How was that? Not bad for a guy with no hair follicles.
Little geezer.
Little geezer. Thanks, guys. Do us a favour, yeah? Drop Sophie a message. Let her know how this podcast went for you, right? You know, maybe drop in with like a cheeky one-liner, and then drop me a message as well at Frankie Lee on Instagram. Drop us all a message. Let us know what we do. Drop a review on Apple. Drop a comment on the YouTube. Much love, and thank you very much. Cheers.
Thanks,
Sophie.
Frankie.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Frankie Lee Podcast.